The investigation into the disappearance of Maria Chen, Thomas Whitaker, and Derek Powell took a darker turn when forensic analysis revealed anomalies that defied scientific explanation. The FBI's Special Investigations Unit, typically reserved for cases with national security implications, dispatched Agent Claudia Reyes, known within the Bureau for her expertise in atypical disappearances, to take command of the increasingly disturbing case. Agent Reyes's first discovery sent ripples through the scientific community. Soil samples collected from the deepest footprints contained microbial life forms with cellular structures unlike anything in taxonomic records. More concerning was their behavior under laboratory conditions. The microorganisms arranged themselves into geometric patterns that mimicked the triangular formation of the abandoned sleeping bags. 3 separate labs confirmed these findings before their specimens simultaneously disintegrated at precisely 3:17 am, 7 days after collection. Whatever happened in Death Valley wasn't a crime scene in the conventional sense. Reyes noted in her classified report. It was more akin to a contact event. This assessment gained credibility when audio specialists enhanced the background noise from the hiker's final transmission, revealing what linguists from the University of Arizona tentatively identified as communication patterns consistent with language, but operating on frequencies outside normal human perception. The recovery of Thomas Whitaker's satellite phone yielded the most haunting evidence. A 17-second video clip filmed in near-total darkness, illuminated only by what appeared to be bioluminescent particles floating upward from the sand. In the footage, Whitaker's normally steady hand trembled violently as he captured what 3 independent visual analysts confirmed was the sand itself behaving like a liquid medium, forming ripple patterns that moved against the wind direction. Most disturbing was the final frame, a half-formed humanoid figure emerging from the ground, its proportions subtly wrong, its limbs too numerous and jointed in impossible ways. Park Ranger Samuel Delgado, first on the scene, refused all subsequent desert assignments and took early retirement. During his exit interview, the 20-year veteran confessed, "I've worked these badlands my entire career, but what I felt at that campsite wasn't emptiness. It was the opposite, like the desert was suddenly too full, too attentive." When pressed for clarification, Delgado would only add, the sand hadn't just swallowed them, it was wearing them somehow. The case took an unexpected turn when hikers in Death Valley began reporting brief sightings of 3 individuals matching the missing persons' descriptions, always at a distance, always at dusk, always walking in perfect synchronization. These sightings shared a bizarre consistency. The figures appeared to sink slightly into the sand with each step, as if significantly heavier than normal humans, and never left footprints despite the soft terrain. Maria Chen's sister received 3 text messages from Maria's phone 4 months after the disappearance, each sent at 3:17 am, each containing only GPS coordinates. When mapped, they formed an exact outline of the Ubehid crater, a half-mile-wide volcanic depression in Death Valley. Most chilling was the fact that the phone itself had been recovered by authorities and remained in an evidence locker when the messages were sent. The Death Valley incident joined the growing list of anomalous desert disappearances classified under the Department of Interior's Territorial Consciousness Protocols, cases where conventional search and rescue methodologies consistently fail, where technology malfunctions in patterns suggesting intentional interference, and where the environment itself appears to demonstrate agency. The case remains officially unsolved, though satellite surveillance of Death Valley continues under the guise of geological monitoring. Motion-activated cameras occasionally capture 3 figures moving across the dunes after midnight, their faces turned away from any recording devices, their movements too fluid to be entirely human. The sealed zone surrounding the Sonoran Desert radio tower became the subject of intense scientific speculation when satellite thermal imaging detected a perfect circle of consistently lower temperatures, precisely 3.17 degrees cooler than the surrounding desert, regardless of seasonal variations. More puzzling was the electromagnetic signature emanating from the site, which telecommunications experts described as information-dense but untranslatable, broadcasting on frequencies typically reserved for deep space communications. Dr. Sanjay Mehta, who analyzed partial samples of the tower's transmissions before his security clearance was abruptly revoked, described the signal pattern as conversational in structure, like a dialogue rather than a broadcast. His controversial paper, published in an obscure European journal before being forcibly retracted, proposed that the tower had been infected with something that used electronic communication as a vector, similar to how viruses use cells, but operating with purposeful intelligence. The most compelling evidence came from 7 former Vericom employees who formed a whistleblower coalition in 2022. Their testimony described company storage facility 37, a temperature-controlled warehouse containing components removed from the tower. According to maintenance logs, these components required replacement every 7 to 13 days because they consistently transformed into unrecognizable configurations that engineers described as more efficient than our current technology, but operating on principles we don't understand. More disturbing were reports that the stored components continued changing even after removal from the tower, with security footage showing them subtly shifting position when not directly observed. 3 storage facility employees were hospitalized with identical symptoms: microscopic crystalline structures forming in their inner ears, permanent tinnitus that acoustics experts identified as carrying encoded mathematical sequences, and recurring nightmares of sand that watches you. Former Vericom security director Helena Rhodes broke her non-disclosure agreement in 2023, revealing that the company had recovered Marcus Warren's field journal 7 months after his disappearance. The journal, apparently untouched by the elements despite being found partially buried in sand, contained increasingly disjointed entries culminating in a troubling revelation. It's not a tower. It never was. It's a translation device. The sand has always been speaking. We just couldn't hear it until now. Rhodes also disclosed Marcus's final video log, recorded on equipment that should have lacked sufficient battery power to function. The footage showed him calmly explaining a theory that would later be echoed by 3 separate university research teams. Silicon is the second most abundant element on Earth. Every beach, every desert. It's basically a different form of the same element we use to make computer chips. What if silicon itself has the capacity for intelligence when properly configured? What if deserts are already vast thinking systems operating on timescales too slow for us to perceive? The most scientifically provocative development came when biologist Dr. Vanessa Liu gained brief access to sand samples from the restricted zone. Her analysis revealed microscopic structures resembling neural networks forming among silicon particles, creating what appeared to be computational pathways similar to primitive brain architecture, but operating on principles closer to quantum computing than organic cognition. The implications are staggering. Dr. Liu wrote before her research was classified. If silicon-based intelligence exists naturally and has only now found a way to interface with our technology, then we have to consider that we've been surrounded by vast non-organic consciousness throughout human history, one potentially as old as Earth itself, operating on a timescale where 1,000 years might be equivalent to a single thought. The technological anomalies surrounding the tower incident attracted attention from SETI researchers, who noted unsettling parallels between the tower's reconfiguration patterns and certain unexplained deep space signals. Theoretical physicist Dr. William Chen observed that if we were looking for evidence of non-carbon-based intelligence, we've been pointing our instruments in the wrong direction. Perhaps most chilling was the discovery that Marcus Warren's phone, despite being non-functional, has influenced every communication device that has examined it. Each exhibits the same anomaly. At precisely 3:17 am, they connect to what network diagnostics identify as an impossible number of cellular towers simultaneously and briefly display the same message, a string of silicon atom arrangements that molecular physicists recognize as a self-replicating pattern capable of infinite complexity from simple initial conditions. The psychiatric facility where Sofia Rivera spent 3 years became a pilgrimage site for paranormal researchers, ghost hunters, and desperate relatives of missing persons. all hoping to extract meaning from her periodic utterances. Dr. Elaine Morrow, the psychiatrist who treated Sophia, documented a phenomenon she termed temporal displacement episodes, during which Sophia would speak with perfect clarity but address people who weren't present, using vernacular consistent with 1930s speech patterns. She's not hallucinating in the clinical sense, Dr. Morrow explained in her peer-reviewed paper that was subsequently withdrawn under mysterious circumstances. The consistency of her alternate reality demonstrates a coherence that defies conventional psychiatric explanations. It's as if she's simultaneously existing in two time periods. The 1938 class photograph Sophia clutched when found became the subject of intensive forensic analysis. Authentication experts confirmed the photograph's paper composition and development chemicals matched those used in the 1930s, despite the impossibility of the image surviving the documented fire. More disturbing was the digital enhancement revealing that one of the photograph teachers bore an uncanny resemblance to Sophia herself, a statistical impossibility given no familial connection to anyone in Prosperity's historical record. 6 months after Sophia's discharge, 17 urban explorers attempted to replicate her journey to prosperity. None completed their documentaries. 3 returned with no memory of entering the town, despite their vehicles showing over 70 miles on their trip odometers. 9 never returned at all. 5 were found wandering the desert highways with identical injuries, perfect circular burns on their palms, and retinal damage, consistent with viewing an event that exceeded the visible light spectrum. Authorities sealed off all known routes to prosperity in 2017, citing environmental hazards. Satellite imagery revealed the inexplicable. Despite being situated in one of Arizona's harshest desert regions, the abandoned town now appeared to be surrounded by thriving vegetation that botanical experts identified as non-native species typically found in temperate climates. Infrared imaging captured heat signatures throughout the town that appeared and disappeared on a precise schedule, matching a typical school day from the 1930s. The most compelling evidence emerged when Sophia finally broke her silence during a total solar eclipse in 2023. During the 2 minutes and 47 seconds of totality, she provided a detailed account of what she experienced in the schoolhouse, not as an urban explorer, but as Miss Collins, a teacher newly arrived in Prosperity in September 1938. The children knew the fire was coming, she explained in the recording that has since been subjected to 17 different voice analysis tests, all confirming she believed absolutely in what she was saying. They weren't trying to escape it, they were trying to harness it. The ritual needed 25 souls at the precise moment. The mine revealed what was buried beneath it. The town wasn't named Prosperity because of the silver. It was named for what they hoped to birth there. When asked what happened to the missing urban explorers, Sophia's response chilled investigators. The classroom never has empty seats for long. The children need to maintain the circle. 25 souls. Always 25. She drew a perfect circle on her notepad, dividing it into 25 equal sections with mathematical precision impossible without measurement tools. Professor Ariana Santos from the Department of Theoretical Physics at MIT has since proposed what she calls localized temporal loop theory to explain the prosperity anomaly, suggesting that certain traumatic events can create knots in the space-time continuum where past and present exist simultaneously. Her request to conduct controlled experiments in prosperity was denied by 7 different government agencies within hours of submission. The final piece of the prosperity puzzle emerged when historical researchers discovered that the town's schoolhouse had burned exactly 17 times between 1878 and 1938, always with precisely 25 casualties, always during years when the nearby silver mine reached a specific depth. Geological surveys conducted before the area was restricted revealed that directly beneath the schoolhouse lies an unusual mineral deposit that exhibits properties consistent with non-terrestrial elemental composition. The aftermath of the Hollow Canyon incident reverberated through scientific circles, creating ideological fault lines between researchers who advocated for reopening the site and those who lobbied for permanent containment protocols. The debate intensified when acoustic engineers detected what they termed organized sound patterns emanating from the filled-in excavation site, vibrations that, when visualized through spectrographic analysis, formed geometric patterns identical to those depicted on the clay tablets. Dr. Maya Henderson, who had declined Dr. Phillips's invitation to join the expedition due to pregnancy complications, became the reluctant custodian of her colleague's legacy. Eleanor wasn't investigating an archaeological site, she explained in her controversial TEDx talk that was subsequently removed from all platforms. She was following a map. Those weren't settlement remains. They were components of something that was meant to be reassembled. The university's digital archives revealed troubling patterns in Dr. Phillips's research trajectory. Her previous expeditions had systematically investigated 7 different desert locations across the American Southwest, each sharing unusual acoustic properties. When mapped, these sites formed a perfect heptagram centered on Hollow Canyon. More disturbing was the discovery that Dr. Phillips had submitted identical grant proposals to 17 different institutions over a decade, each time slightly modifying her methodology, but maintaining the same research locations. Computational linguist Dr. Hiroshi Takahashi made the breakthrough connection when he recognized patterns in the team's final recorded message matched mathematical expressions found in ancient Sumerian texts describing entities that existed between states of matter. His analysis suggested the phrases weren't communications but activations, phonetic keys designed to trigger specific vibrational responses in human cerebral fluid. The implications are staggering, Dr. Takahashi wrote before abruptly abandoning his academic position. These aren't languages in the traditional sense. They're programming code for organic matter. The sounds don't just communicate ideas, they physically restructure whatever receives them. The 7 sets of clothing discovered at the site revealed another layer of mystery when placed under electron microscopy. The fabric contained microscopic alterations to its cellular structure, with cotton fibers rearranged into patterns that quantum computing specialists recognized as algorithms capable of solving complex mathematical problems deemed impossible by conventional computing standards. Most unsettling were the reports from local schools within a 300-mile radius of Hollow Canyon. Between 2020 and 2024, educators documented an unprecedented synchronization in children's developmental patterns, particularly in how they processed and produced specific phonemes. Speech pathologists identified 17 vowel sounds that had spontaneously synchronized across diverse linguistic backgrounds, creating what one researcher described as a harmonic convergence in human vocalization that defies cultural and genetic explanation. The parents of affected children reported consistent behavioral changes, increased fascination with sand and soil, improved mathematical abilities specifically related to geometrical visualization, and recurring dreams of voices that speak through touch rather than sound. Most concerning was a collective art pattern. Thousands of children spontaneously creating circular drawings containing 7 elongated figures, each depicting what art therapists described as beings in a state of transformation. The Department of Energy's establishment of a research facility 3 miles beneath Hollow Canyon in 2023 was officially attributed to geological survey requirements. However, whistleblower reports suggested the true purpose was to investigate unusual radiation signatures matching those detected at both the Highway 50 phenomenon and the Sonoran Desert radio tower sites, creating what internal documents allegedly called the Desert Triangle, a zone of anomalous activity spanning 3 states. The Nevada Highway Patrol created a specialized task force in 2023 after Officer Ramon Diaz encountered what dispatch logs officially recorded as a traffic anomaly while patrolling Highway 50 at night. His cruiser's dashcam captured conventional desert highway, transforming into what geological experts described as chronological strata, distinct sections of highway appearing from different decades simultaneously, complete with era-appropriate vehicles that seemed unaware of each other's existence. Diaz's body camera, recovered after his psychiatric leave, became permanent retirement, recorded his encounter with 7 different iterations of Joseph simultaneously, each version appearing progressively more decomposed yet more coherent as the radiation damage to their bodies increased. Most disturbing was their synchronized movement and speech, suggesting not 7 separate entities, but one consciousness experiencing multiple. The facility exists in a state of temporal recursion, all 7 versions explained while pointing to the mesa with perfect synchronization. The experiment never ended because it never can end. Physics doesn't allow for its termination. When Diaz asked what experiment they meant, their collective response became the foundation for a classified Department of Energy investigation. We weren't splitting atoms. We were splitting time. The subsequent multi-agency investigation revealed that between 1954 and 1963, the government conducted covert tests, codenamed Project Kronos, beneath the mesa Joseph perpetually indicates. Declassified fragments suggest researchers attempted to harness atomic detonations to create temporal displacement fields, with potential applications for weapons systems that could pre-deploy to battlefields before conflicts began. Dr. Meera Patel, nuclear physicist and the only scientist granted limited access to the sealed facility records, resigned her security clearance after 2 weeks of research. Her cryptic explanation, "There are worse things than nuclear war, and we've been manufacturing one beneath the desert for 70 years, preceded her disappearance into a Buddhist monastery where she reportedly maintains a vigil of continuous prayer. In 2024, trucking companies began equipping vehicles on Highway 50 with specialized temporal stabilization units disguised as ordinary dash cameras. These devices, developed by a defense contractor with no public-facing presence, reportedly measure and counteract localized chronological instability. Drivers using these devices report significant reduction in Joseph sightings, but describe a new phenomenon: radio frequencies capturing what sound like thousands of people speaking simultaneously, all counting backward from different starting numbers. Most compelling was the 2023 incident involving quantum physicist Dr. Eleanor Reeves, who deliberately sought out the Highway 50 phenomenon after connecting it to her theoretical work on membrane permeability between adjacent time streams. Her specialized equipment recorded energy signatures matching those predicted by her controversial multitemporal exposure theory, which proposed that certain locations could experience simultaneous existence across multiple timelines, following exposure to specific radiation patterns. Dr. Reeves's experiment ended when Joseph appeared in her research vehicle, not as a hitchhiker, but as what first responders described as a 3-dimensional tear in the visual field. The recorded interaction included Joseph explaining, "The facility isn't abandoned. It's still fully staffed and operational, but the staff doesn't know they died in 1962. When Reeves attempted to drive to the mesa, her vehicle reportedly aged decades in seconds, its modern components transforming into their 1950s equivalents while continuing to function." The most disturbing evidence came from ground-penetrating radar studies conducted covertly by satellite, revealing that the facility beneath the mesa exists in what geologists termed superimposed dimensional states, appearing at different depths simultaneously, with structural elements that seem to phase between existence and non-existence on a predictable 3.17-minute cycle. Nevada Department of Transportation records indicate 17 attempts to permanently close or reroute Highway 50 since 1963, each mysteriously cancelled after reaching final approval stages. Traffic analysis reveals that despite official detours, GPS systems inexplicably reroute travelers back to the phenomenon's epicenter during specific astronomical alignments. Local indigenous wisdom provides perhaps the most elegant explanation for the Highway 50 phenomenon. Paiute elder Grace Running Water, when asked about the area, simply stated, "That place has always been thin. Your government didn't create the doorway. They just propped it open and can't figure out how to close it. Now both sides are leaking into each other." Most provocative was the testimony of Dr. Samantha Rees, quantum physicist and consultant to multiple government agencies, who proposed that these desert phenomena represented consciousness transfiguration events. locations where the boundary between different states of existence became permeable. "We've misunderstood evolution," her classified briefing reportedly stated. "It isn't just a biological process. It's a state transition applicable to consciousness itself." These sites aren't paranormal. They're doorways to what physics has always predicted. Matter organization complex enough to achieve awareness can subsequently reorganize itself into forms unconstrained by conventional physical limitations. The university permanently sealed Dr. Phillips's office in 2024 after maintenance workers reported the sand sample collection in her laboratory had begun arranging itself into miniature replicas of Hollow Canyon's spherical chamber. Security footage from the night before the sealing showed the office door opening and closing repeatedly at 3:17 a.m., despite no human presence, and spectrographic analysis of the building's subtle vibrations during that time revealed a pattern matching precisely the team's final transmission.